Evolution is very much a constant in the automotive industry, which is why you see so many facelifts happen in this industry, more than you actually see in the entire of LA. Maybe, I think. Models too get replaced by their newer cells so that their nameplates keep up with the times and they remain relevant. Think of it as humans. We first, if you subscribe to science, we first started from hairy little hunched over things, and then eventually we stood tall. Well, not in this case, but maybe upright, a little bit hairless. Unfortunately, thanks to our devices, we're starting to crawl back down again. Oh, look at me, I'm a keyboard warrior. I hate everybody. So what I'm trying to get at is that evolution will always be there, but the problem is trying to figure out whether evolution on certain things is good or evolution on certain things is not so good. This is the 2022 Chevrolet Trailblazer Premier. It has evolved from what was once a 7-seater powerhouse fed by a diesel engine to a 5-seater crossover. And what I want to find out today is if this evolution was a good one or a bad one. You get it? Do you need help purchasing your car insurance? Head on over to AutoDeal.com.ph/car-insurance. Here, you can compare prices and customize your insurance coverage from many of the Philippines' top providers. When you've selected the insurance that's best for you, simply fill out the application and complete the transaction with ease through Visa, MasterCard, GCash, GrabPay, or PayPal, and receive your policy within the next business day. Get the best deal on insurance with AutoDeal. Now here's the thing with the new Trailblazer. While it once fought it out with the giants of the diesel-fed 7-seater SUV segment, it now fights in the compact crossover arena. This means that just like its engine, the price has gone on a diet as well. The 2022 Chevrolet Trailblazer Premier comes in at 1,621,888 Philippine pesos. So it puts it right about the segment of the Ford Territory and the Geely Escara. Now, one of the key changes a car has when it does its, or rather when it goes through its evolution, is the exterior. Now, sometimes it can be very radical, sometimes it can actually be very vanilla. But in the case of this, well, just take a look at it. It's a far departure from what it really used to be. It's really evolved, much like puberty, like the cast of Harry Potter. Those three, or rather those two, when did they get beards all of a sudden, right? And then there's Hermione. When did she become, well, you know. Well, that's not creepy at all now, is it? First things first, there are obvious Camaro callbacks here, starting with the large front grille, which is flanked on either side by sleek LED daytime running lights. Now, I say DRLs as the headlights are found here on the cheeks of the bumper. It's a great look that works well with Chevy's new design language, to be honest. And if the design cues look familiar, it's because it's similar to that of the Tracker. Speaking of the Tracker, if you would like to see a review on that, click up somewhere on the screen and we'll have the review for you, or in the links below. Now, while we're up front, let's discuss the engine. Up front, what was once a massive 2.8-liter turbo diesel engine is now a 1.3-liter gasoline engine with only 3 cylinders that produces 155 horses and 236 newton-meters of torque. So obviously, the engine has gone on a massive, massive diet, which produces a bit less than the previous generation, which is, I guess, completely an understatement. It's basically like the character of Mike Myers on one of his movies, on a Subway diet.
I went on the Subway diet, you know, just like Jared. I do have a little bit of excess skin, though.
So fuel efficiency-wise, it can do about 10 kilometers per liter in the city, but impressive is when it gets out on the highway and stretches its legs, because it can do about 22.5 kilometers per liter. That's actually quite nice. And if you're wondering if that's enough to power the entire vehicle, I should say so, because, well, the previous generation weighed almost twice as much as this automobile. Oh, and before I forget, it is also mated to a CVT, which seems to be working very well for Chevrolet, but I'll get to that a little bit later. Down the side, you've got very clean body lines, which I quite like because it makes it look nice and tight and simple. Then it's broken up nicely with a couple of black and chrome, or not chrome, but brushed colored plastics up on top. Then the A-pillar is black, as it is back here too, so it gives it the appearance of a floating roof line, which is actually pretty cool. Then you've got repeaters on your side mirror, more black cladding down below, and we're estimating roughly about 180 millimeters of ground clearance. Then when you get to the wheels, which are disc brakes on both front and rear, by the way, these are 17s on 60 series tires. Now, I like it because it gives the appearance of that it's going to be a quite comfortable ride thanks to the thickness of the tire. Sporty-wise, it's kind of okay because the black of the rubber actually blends well with the black of the mag itself. What's also cool, might not be the liking of a lot of people, but I think it's actually pretty cool, is that it's broken up by this silver or kind of whitish accents that are all around. So it looks like it's a chisel that's cutting away at the wind. How does a chisel cut away the wind? No, wood, not wind. You know what, Carlo, you're an idiot. The rear features a more compact look, actually. Although the taillights are quite large and they swoop from the side, it's this angle here and here that gives it sort of like a tucked in look, sort of like somebody giving you cheekbones kind of a thing, again with the facelift. So you've got a spoiler with a third brake light there, and then sensors found down below with an exhaust tip that is very, very well hidden. Yeah, can't see it. There are many cool features that I like about the rear, and then there's one that kind of gets to me. This isn't a deal breaker, but Chevy has always had this line that stretches down the center of the car. And you can find it up front too. Up front, it's not a problem because it's just on the hood, and the label, or rather the emblem stands by itself. Here, that line kind of goes underneath the emblem, and I don't know, I guess my OCD-ness is kind of getting to me. Some cool features is that you can swipe to open because this is a power tailgate, and that I like very much on such a small automobile. As too is the amount of space that you get back here, because you're looking at about 700 liters of space. That's with the second row up, and then over 1,500 when you fold the second row. Another cool feature is that there is a bottom with a very low lip, but if you want to load much heavier items, you can remove this bottom and place it at a much higher area so that it's all flat, all throughout. I think those small little things will really make up for a big car. That's cool. I like that a lot. In the rear seats, you will find that they are, well, very firm, supportive, and very flat, really. I wish my stomach was like this, but no, beer. There isn't much bolstering on the seats, and the leather is, I guess, leans more towards the supple side than the durable side, a little bit. So it actually has a nice feel to it. And then there's the fact that the leg room is actually pretty darn good, and the headroom is, well, less as impressive than the legroom. Now, mind you, again, I'm only about 5 feet 5 inches tall, so just imagine yourself, and I'm sitting as high up as I can as possible, so it might be a tight squeeze for taller passengers. Legroom actually should be okay. If there are 3 passengers back here, that won't be an issue because there's absolutely no tunnel, and then this console that's found in the center, this box, is actually quite high and dips in quite well, so moving side to side inside this guy, or for a third passenger, no issues at all. Your passengers, however, will have an issue because, well, unfortunately, there aren't many toys back here, which is a nice way of saying there are 0 toys back here that you will want or need. For instance, there is no center armrest with cup holders. You only have bottle holders on either door. You do not have air vents on the ceiling, apart from this light, I guess. But there are no air vents on the ceiling, and there are no air vents up front. Also, there are no charging points found for the rear also. So the only thing that you really have to play with are the windows that go up and down, which is, I guess, nice. No, I'm messing around with you. The one thing that is back here as part of its tech or toys, unfortunately, it's not something that you will use in a tropical country, is the fact that you can heat your seats here at the back. That's quite impressive because that's, well, it's tech, but really, this is the Philippines, and I don't know. Might not be a good idea. It'll be fun to play a prank on someone though if they're asleep and then they wake up in a pool of sweat and then they're sliding all over the leather and then your parents hit the brake and they, oh, that's just mean. Now up front, you've got a mixture of new and, well, a little bit dated, I really need to say. You do have some soft touch plastics that can be found all around the cabin and lots of textures too, which I think is a nice touch. But then, like I said, it's a mix of old and new. Old in the sense that, for example, your instrument cluster is 2 analog gauges that are flanked by a digital chip computer that is monochrome, and it's very, very wee, it's very tiny. On the other side, on the other end rather, it's a bit more high-tech, because then you've got an 8-inch touchscreen infotainment system with a Chevrolet MyLink that doubles as your reverse camera. And that's nice because then it also got Android and Apple capabilities. But then, you know, it gets a little bit old again because, well, there's piano black plastics inside the car which are very, very reachable. Now, I do understand that piano black plastics are at a bit more of a premium to the automobile, but I've made no secret of this that I'm not really a fan because they actually can get scratched very, very easily by a key or whatever it is that you have in your hands at that point. And plus, cleaning it is a B, you can continue that word. You have a pretty good feeling steering wheel. However, it's heated. Not always, but the fact that you can heat it is, I don't even know, again, like the seats in the back, I have no idea why they kept that function in this country. Would have been, I guess, better for the price if they removed it, I guess. You've got functions on your steering wheel, such as to control your audio and your cruise, which is nice and important. You've got large knobs for your air, so they're very easy to operate. They kind of look like Wall-E. And then down below, you've got a Type A and Type C USB charging point. I must note that these are the only charging points available for the entire car, which is kind of sad. And then you got a 12-volt socket found down there. You do also have modes inside this automobile, which I believe a race flag would obviously mean a little bit racy. And then you've got snow, which we've tried to turn on, but it doesn't work. So you've got heated seats and a heated steering wheel, but the snow doesn't, I don't know, maybe I'm doing it wrong. So for the race mode, as you put it, there's a flag there. There are no paddles on the steering wheel. Oh, there are! Oh my goodness, Jack, there are. They're buttons, dude.
Also audio controls.
Oh, these are audio controls? So like I was saying, there are no paddles on the steering wheel, but if you would like to change gear, there is a button on the shifter that goes up and down. I told you these were audio controls, man. Listen to me every once in a while. And then an electronic parking brake found down here. Now in this particular car, Chevrolet likes to do a few things very different, sort of like throw you a curveball, so to speak. For instance, the stalk for your lights here, it's still pulled to turn on your bright lights and whatnot and turn it on. But to turn the lights on itself, it's much like a European car or like a Ford, for instance, where the light switches are actually on your left-hand side. Nothing that we haven't seen before, but it's just different in that sense. And then there's also an extra quirk where you can, normally in cars, you can adjust the power tailgate from the infotainment system, which might be kind of cumbersome to some, and it takes a while to get used to, or rather to get to. In this case, there's actually a knob found here down on the left, which actually controls the height of the door at the rear, which I think is pretty cool. So there is a bit of a learning curve, but it's not as if that it's going to take you more than like 30 minutes to get used to it, kind of a thing. It's very, very easy. What I would like to do now is go on a drive and talk about the CVT that's available with this 1.3-liter 3-cylinder turbocharged engine. But before we do set off, may I ask for just a small little favor that you guys like and subscribe this video, because for our channel, yeah, we love creating these videos just for you guys. So help us out. Now earlier, if I didn't mention it, I'll mention it now. The new Trailblazer is front-wheel drive, and that sudden drive change actually works very well for the automobile. Allow me to explain. Number one is that it's obviously much easier to drive and it's much lighter. To pull the car along is a lot easier now rather than pushing it. So it's easier to drive. Then there's the CVT. The CVT actually is pretty good because then it maximizes as much fuel efficiency-ness as the car can get while squeezing out as much power as it can do. And then at the same time, that CVT, to be honest with you, sometimes when you're driving, it actually doesn't feel like a CVT. And honestly, that simple fact alone is absolutely great. If there's anything to complain about when you're driving the automobile, would be the brakes. But then again, that can be well adjusted because as it is, it's actually very tall. So just a little bit and the car seems to slow down. So there's a learning curve to it. And you will find that in traffic, you might force yourself to sort of like stop, come to a complete stop every once in a while. But again, like I said, it's not as if that service can't fix that, right? It's not a sickness of the automobile. No, not at all. In any case, I think that it's actually pretty cool because that means that there's just so much bite in the automobile. I mean, you really feel those 4-disc brakes kick in. The NVH, however, might need a little bit of help. Well, like with most cars, when you're going over rough terrain, there is a holistic sound that goes around the entire cabin. In this case, however, you can immediately tell that the noise is coming from the front 2 tires, and you feel the vibration come back to you and translated into the steering wheel more than you would like. At the same time, however, though, that if the noise level in here gets too bad for you, whether it be road or a little bit of wind at higher speeds, I can tell you, and I wish I could show you, but I can tell you that the speakers in here, the stereo system, is actually quite darn good. Power is as what you would expect from a low displacement, high torque car, which to say that we're traveling at 50 kilometers per hour now, I bury the accelerator and there's good pull to it. And it's a nice feeling to it. So it does come in pretty low. At higher speed, there's a little bit of a lull. And then when you put it into manual mode, which you can only do, by the way, if you put it in low, there is a bit of a delay when you're using the manual mode. But keep it in drive, as most people will, it's actually quite a pleasant car to drive. Which doesn't come at the expense of fuel efficiency, because as we mentioned earlier, it gets 10 inside the city and a whopping 22.5 on the highway. The only thing that you may have a problem with is the seats. The bolsterings for the driver is good, front passenger is okay. Now inside this car, since it's quite peppy, you do want to get not racy, which you can obviously because there is an option, but you can and want to be able to carve a couple of twisties and whatnot, because it's definitely going to be a lot of fun in this car. It's just that the rear passengers might be sliding around complaining, like that girl that's sliding around going, "Where's the beef?" I realize that commercial's way too old for you, Jack. You don't get the reference.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
I'll show you a YouTube clip later. If there were 2 things that I were to isolate about this car that I love, one is that the power is always there. Yes, it's a small displacement, but as I showed earlier, it's obviously going to be a lot of fun to drive because it's got high torque figures. That's one. Second, is actually something that might annoy other people, which is that the driver aids inside this automobile, or rather the safety features, are a little bit on the sensitive side. So you've got the autonomous braking, the forward collision alert, the rear cross traffic alert. These things will like beep like mad when you're getting too close or changing a lane without using your indicators and whatnot. The good thing about it is that, well, for a more senior driver like myself, I can actually turn these driver systems off. I have that option. So that when, let's say, for example, my son gets into the automobile, we can turn these systems back on so that it trains him to, well, basically be a safer and better driver. So the fact that it can do these things, give you power and be safe at the same time, and might I add, it also looks very different from the other crossovers that are on the road. Well, that's just a really big plus for me, honestly. Now, just like evolution, it's a constant change with the Trailblazer. I mean, it's, like I said, a very radical departure from what it once was, which was a 7-seater, 2.8-liter diesel engine. Now it's, well, it's a crossover. It's a 5-seater, where it once was more of a family automobile. Now it's, well, it's geared to more a younger audience, to be honest with you. Now, we spoke about evolution, about how all of it is not necessarily always good and not all of it is always necessarily bad. In the sense of the Trailblazer, well, to be honest with you, most of the evolutionary changes are actually good with the automobile. And I do believe that it will serve its target audience very well.